Thank you very much for still being there with us on Kakaki, the African Voice. Now, one thing that is really lacking, especially in the schools, is history. When we talk of June 12, 1993, a lot of people don't have a clear idea what the event leading up to that day, and in fact, that particular election was all about. But anyway, we have something that has been packaged, which would be a very interesting educational material to generations who did not experience June 12. And here to talk about that is a broadcast journalist who was once one of us. And he's still one of us anyway.
Yeah, still one of you. Still one of you.
Honorable in the waiting.
Well,
In waiting.
that's another angle to it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Obiora joins us. Thank you so much for being
My
here.
pleasure.
Thank you.
You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, you packaged a documentary titled Sweats of Freedom on the Struggle for Democracy in Nigeria. And I understand you traveled across the country to get materials and documented for documentation.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about the documentary.
Well, the documentary, I was excited about how you started, you know, because history is a problem in our country. Things that happened as recent as 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you'll be surprised that a lot of people don't know about it. When we had our premiere in Abuja, for instance, I saw 40-year-olds, 35-year-olds, shocked and excited about some of the things they saw because they didn't know. Well, they may have heard it happened, but nothing is documented. So this documentary focuses on the years of 66 to 1999. Why did the military come in the first place? Why did they stay for so long? What was the impact of the military on our socio-economic, political development? Where are we today? So the idea of the documentary, in summary, is to, pinch Nigerians back to consciousness. That look, all the ills in the early 60s that brought the military, that took us almost to the brink as a country with the Civil War and all that, they are all back. Corruption. Every military head of state who came hinged the intervention on corruption from 1966. Corruption is even more than it was now. Ethnic rivalry is even more than it was then, now. Killings. Part of what happened when you watch the documentary, meanwhile, that documentary is being aired today at 4:30 on AIT, on the AIT network.
Okay.
So when you watch that documentary and you hear some of our elders talk about what happened, one, there were a lot of killings about that time, like the Wete. What is Wete? It was in the southwest. They pour kerosene on Nigerians and they incinerate. They put light, they light it up. They said they were their enemies, they were saboteurs. That reminds you of Boko Haram, the headsmen that are all over us now. Religious bigotry. All of that are back. So we are pinching Nigerians back to consciousness that look, the military, gone, 99, we have 20 years. But are those ills that brought them, are they still there? They are there. So what we are warning, it's like a warning. That look.
So those ills never really left us as a people?
It never did. Corruption is even more humongous. Okay, with all the touted fight against corruption by this government, all their efforts, corruption is still there in high places and in low places. Because, when I quit active broadcasting, I told myself, what are you going to leave for humanity? I told myself I need to go and document some parts of Nigeria's history. And one of the projects, this project actually we did it in conjunction with the Ford Foundation.
Okay.
There's another project we're doing with the MacArthur Foundation, where we're talking about corruption, this big corruption that we're talking about. A lot of our fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters in the villages, they don't understand this verbose anti-corruption. They don't understand it.
What did they understand?
They're confused because you are not even bringing it in their own language. So part of what we are doing is to bring it in their own language. Somebody says they took 3 trillion. We tell this guy that trillion means that you can get a teaching hospital in your community. You can get pipe-borne water. You can tar all the roads in one state. You can equip all the schools. And we say it, we bring that thing to them in their own language.
So describe the action by the words they are called.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So they understand it in their language. So part of what I'm doing, we're making sure that we translate all this big money language and whatever in Pidgin, in Igbo, in Yoruba, in Hausa and all that. Because corruption has really not left us. And the unfortunate thing is that foreigners are more interested in fighting corruption in Nigeria than Nigerians are interested in fighting it. All the support media, civil society organizations are getting are from mostly foreign foundations, like MacArthur Foundation, Ford, and all that. Because we still think that, I mean, these days when we are growing up, if you said that somebody took 1 million naira, everybody is like enraged. They want to get the person and stone the person to death. But when you say today, a governor took 2 billion, we'll leave this story now. People took 10. You know, like Nigerians are...
They took all this too.
They don't feel it anymore.
Okay.
Because it's so normal.
Okay. Now, let's talk about June 12 and the place of June 12 in this documentary, The Struggle of Nigeria. Still part of what I could classify a recent history that the significance is lost on a whole number of people. In South Africa, they call them Generation Now or After or whatever. But in Nigeria, we have a generation of folks who still don't understand the significance of June 12. What does it feature in this documentary?
Well, the documentary looks at June 12 as an event that changed the entire, history of our country. On June 12, Nigerians decided that they belonged to a nation and not a country. In June 12, Nigerians voted for the best candidate, not whatever religion it was that candidate believed in. Nigerians voted for liberty. They voted for true independence. They voted for true democracy. And because of the way it happened, we thought it was important that the younger generation understood that June 12 was possible and is still possible. That for the first time in Nigeria, it looked like our votes were counting. It looked like what was voted for was the result that we saw. You remember that Abiola's opponent lost in his own
state.
Kano. In a lot of other places. Because Nigerians were tired of the rigmarole of the military. The Babangida unending transition. The Abacha unending transition. All that. Nigerians were tired. And for the first time they said, look, let's put tribalism away. Let's put religion away. Let's put all those things that divided us. And let's vote for a Nigerian who they felt was very Nigerian at that time. And that was the significance of June 12.
My question to you will be, okay, let me just allow you to land your thoughts.
No, go ahead.
My question would be, do you think, speaking personally and as a journalist who has documented this fantastic piece of our history, that it is possible for June 12 to repeat itself in Nigeria?
It's very possible. I'll tell you why. I ran for election in the last election. I ran for House of Representatives. Yes. And I moved all over in my constituency. Nigerians are tired. Nigerians are frustrated with their governments. I don't want to say PDP or APC. They're tired of this deceit. They're tired of the killings. You and I, 3 of us are here. We're tired of tuning radio every morning and hearing that 20 people had been killed in Jos. That because of the irresponsibility, in quotes, of those in authority, that in Zamfara people are fighting over our minerals because there's no regulation, nobody's trying to. So Nigerians are tired. I have a feeling, and I saw it when I went around my constituency, campaigning, that Nigerians want a change, real change. They want their leaders to be truthful. They want their leaders to come to equity with clean hands. You can't say you're fighting corruption, and I'm not talking about federal or state or local government. You can't say you are fighting corruption, and your wife is collecting bribe on your behalf. And your brothers are collecting bribe on your behalf.
And you're aware.
And you're aware, and you say you're fighting corruption. So Nigerians are tired of that. So you see Nigerians taking their fate in their hands. That was what happened on June 12th, and it's going to happen again.
All right.
Because they're tired.
We'll continue with this conversation. Let's take take a listen to a portion of the documentary.
Obiora was really a joiner, not a founder. There were 49 of us who founded Nadeco.
It started as a fortnightly forum called Campaign for Democracy, where we gathered, as it were in Lagos those days, people from labor union, from student union, from professional association, to say, look, the way this Babangida's transition program is going, it will lead us nowhere.
Whatever democratic government you have, provided you maintain democracy, is better than any form of removal or changing of government or regime through the barrel of the gun.
All right, yes, that documentary, and it's some interesting personalities in that documentary. But let's just take one, Mr. Obiora, the role of some of those key actors in the June 12. I've seen Olusegun Osunbonso, I've seen Olusegun Obasanjo, I've seen Innocent Chukwuma, a civil rights activist. Let's take Obasanjo, for instance. His role in the June 12 struggle, he's still very vocal as he was then, as he is now. Why is it that when he says what he says now about the socio-political situation in Nigeria, it's interpreted from a negative political point of view, when he appears to have been consistent from the time of the military era up until now?
Well, I've spoken to a lot of Nigerians about Obasanjo, and they say you may accuse Obasanjo of anything, but not patriotism. They say he loves this country with his life, and he almost paid the supreme price during the Abacha regime. I think that's one of the things that happened is that Obasanjo was one of the military men. Obasanjo came as a civilian president. And a lot of Nigerians, when they remember that attempt at third term and all that, they say he's like the rest of them. So you've had opportunity of being president as a military officer, being president as a civilian. You hear Nigerians say something like, what did you do? But I also think it's important we listen to people like Obasanjo. They have so much. Except Obasanjo and President Buhari, no one has had the opportunity of serving under military and serving under civilian. I think there's so much to learn from them, especially Obasanjo. His patriotism is not questioned anywhere.
But did he also lose the opportunity, being a very vocal advocate against military government of Abacha at the time? Did he lose the opportunity when he became civilian president in 1999 to do what Buhari eventually did?
With June 12?
With June 12.
Unfortunate, really, because I thought he was going to do that. And that's why sometimes when people criticize Mr. President, I say that some of the things that people didn't do, he's tried to do them. Because whether you like it or not, June 12 had become something psychological a lot of Nigerians. And what President Buhari did by making June 12 Democracy Day, I think was great. Okay. And for those that say it is not, is when they start looking at it as a Southwest agenda or a Northern agenda. Or I want us to look at some of these issues as Nigerians.
Tell us quickly when the documentary will be aired today, you said?
It's coming up at 4:30 today on the network service of AIT. But there's something, my dear friends, I'd like to talk about. Something I noticed going all over Nigeria, trying to document what happened in those 29 years of the military. We are not preserving our historical sites. I went to Ekpetedo. Ekpetedo, by the way, was the venue in Lagos Island where Obiora declared himself president and made that speech that started his big trouble. Do you know that I got there? For me to be able to do a stand-up in that place, I had to pay money for people to remove crates of beer, posters all over the place. The place is in disrepair. I went to Abiola's house in Ikeja, where he lived. I went to his grave. I went to the grave of Kudirat. You find out that why shouldn't these sites be declared national sites? Why? If we have to pay compensation, we talk about tourism. My grandchildren, when they come, will want to see where Obiora lived. They'd like to see Ekpetedo. They'd like to see Kudirat's grave. They'd like to see where she was shot. They'd like to see houses where Abacha lived and where some, in quotes, of the atrocities that were talked about in that era took place. The government is not preserving anything. We have people in charge of tourism. Ekpetedo, for instance, why should it be in disrepair? Recent history, less than 30 years?
Less than 30 years.
Less than 30 years.
For thought, indeed.
Yes, thank you so much. Of course, a broadcast journalist and the producer of Sweats of Freedom on Struggle for Democracy in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
If you let me just to ask Nigerians that this documentary is a must-watch for every Nigerian. No age barriers, because our children need to know what happened to their country.
Mr. Obiora, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.